around.
Hello, I'm Jorman.
And I'm Shen.
And this is NakedTruth Cinemas.
Pretty good. I think that actually worked very well for our first time.
That was the first time we did that intro.
This is our very first episode of NakedTruth Cinemas, and we are starting off with a banger, which is not really a banger, but it could have been.
It could have been.
Could have been.
Wasn't as bad as people said it was. There were definitely serious flaws.
Yep, definitely.
And what was that one?
It happens to be The Green Lantern.
Starring Ryan Reynolds.
And if you haven't seen The Green Lantern, just watch Van Wilder and Deadpool, and you might have a grasp of what's to come.
Yeah, that's fair. So,
PG-13, by the way.
First and foremost, biggest issue in the movie is from the very beginning. They picked the wrong villain. Parallax was a terrible choice for his first big bad.
Now, if you guys don't understand the synopsis of the Green Lantern, Hal Jordan is selected by an alien from a distant planet.
He's selected by the Ring.
By the Ring, I'm sorry. By the Ring, and he becomes the Green Lantern. Green Lantern is able to construct objects with his power of will.
Along with many other powers, but if we start listing all the powers, it would take forever. The
forever. So
main premise is he can construct objects from his mind using the power of will.
I materialized a racetrack out of pure energy, saving hundreds of people, and you're disappointed. I'm sorry about that.
Again, starting off, Parallax. He is a big bad that was established much later in the Green Lantern story arc. He is not the first big bad. So by the time Parallax in the comics was brought into play, Hal Jordan was seasoned. So it's a horrible villain and a very powerful villain to start off the newbie Green Lantern with. It makes no sense in any context.
Also, within that context, if you guys did not like the movie Green Lantern, don't fret. We're not necessarily against you, but we're not with you either. The writers of this movie happened to use versions of two different comics, maybe three, from issue 1 and issue 29 from The Secret Origins.
Yes, that really is the biggest issue. I think most people like myself, when I went into watching this film, I was expecting Green Lantern issue 1 Hal Jordan rendition, not Green Lantern's Secret Origins Hal Jordan rendition.
How did you know it was me?
What do you mean? I've known you my whole life. I've seen you naked. You don't think I would recognize you because I can't see your cheekbones?
We've discussed this to great length, and we have come to the conclusion that the biggest issue with the movie is the script writing. The second issue was certain casting, not necessarily all the casting.
Not necessarily all the casting.
And the third issue was just how they I mean, we have a character in it called Hector Hammond. You can literally take his entire character arc out, and it doesn't really have any major effects on the overall film.
So if most of you guys don't know who Hector Hammond is in the comics, Hector Hammond is actually a petty thief turned global antagonist. Not necessarily the most important character in the Green Lantern universe, but certainly important enough to hit a big screen franchise. Unfortunately, in the movie, he is depicted as a professor, with his father being part of the...
His father was some kind of senator.
So he was
deals with the military.
Deals with military, senator, and apparently Hector Hammond is now the most important person in the DC universe in the Green Lantern story, which is correctly wrong.
Yeah.
So, as Hector Hammond has a childhood history with Hal Jordan and the counterpart of Carol Ferris,
Hal Jordan's
love interest, indeed.
That was good too.
It becomes an example, a rip-off of so many other cliche-style movies, where this movie ended up being a total flop.
Yeah. I mean, in the comic books, Hector Hammond never had an upbringing, childhood alongside of any of the characters. He was just a petty thief who found a meteor and gained superpowers and became a bad guy.
But instead, he ends up getting superpowers from the original Green Lantern that landed on Earth during an examination within the movie.
Where he got injected with yellow lantern energy somehow.
In the weirdest way possible that Parallax ends up feeding off of in order to be the most dominant opposing enemy in the movie.
I mean, yeah, originally, Hector Hammond has nothing to do with Parallax in any way, shape, or form. They're not connected at all. It made no sense to tie those two characters together in either Secret Origins or original Hal Jordan Green Lantern issues.
So let's talk about the movie in itself. The problems with it is mostly the scripting.
Yes.
The scripting entitles that Parallax is the main villain in this movie, as well as Sinestro being the climax of the end, and Hector Hammond being the opposing,
some kind of subordinate
enemy in most of the movie before Parallax actually comes and does what he needs to do.
Like, you can literally take Hector Hammond out of the movie altogether, and it doesn't change the overall scope of the movie.
So here we go with the casting. So, casting with Ryan Reynolds being the Green Lantern, we've decided that through further review that Ryan Reynolds was a good casting choice. He played his part very well. There is some hiccups that Ryan Reynolds seems to be playing. Ryan Reynolds
did discuss nuances where Ryan Reynolds' mannerisms were not true to the Hal Jordan character, but overall, you know, the cockiness, the arrogance.
He was a great Hal Jordan.
The chauvinism.
Yeah. Womanizing.
Was all pretty much Hal Jordan-esque and right in Ryan Reynolds' wheelhouse overall as an actor. He had some issues where, you know, his Van Wilder days came out.
Yeah, I can see it. Definitely see it. And then we talk about Carol Ferris.
Good cast overall.
Yeah.
She was always an anchor to his character in the comics, you know. She was kind of like she was his Jiminy Cricket as well as love interest. So I think she overall did a just fine job.
Blake Lively sealed the deal. Kudos to her. And then we have Hector Hammond played by Peter Skarsgård.
Yeah, good actor, terrible role for him.
You know, if he had the option to do something else, he should have went with it. After reading the script, if I was an actor in his placement, I would have totally said something is wrong. And most actors and actresses don't usually read up on comics, so they don't really know the details of what they need to do and don't do. So for Peter Skarsgård, you know, if you're ever looking at this, congratulations on your acting, by the way, but the role was not really set for you.
You are just fine. This role was just not good for you because and again, this wasn't even a you issue. It was, again, a scripting issue.
Yeah.
Where they wrote you in as a character who somehow grew up with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, who are clearly much younger.
So let's talk about more of the script and where it failed in as a movie, as to why the fans didn't enjoy it as much.
Well, we gotta start with the first flop in the movie overall, the crash scene.
Man, the crash scene.
So in this film, there's a moment where Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's characters, Hal Jordan, Carol Ferris, are doing a dogfight with these animatronic planes who are, you know, robots. They're not piloted. And Ryan Reynolds defeats them by breaking the rules of conduct, true to Hal Jordan's nature, but causes the plane to stall out, and he starts falling. And he has this moment where he freezes in fear, which makes no sense in any context of the film up to that time or at any later time. The whole premise for his fear was that he saw his father crash when he was a kid. But this was a scenario where the crash wasn't imminent. He wasn't in immediate danger. He was free falling. The plane itself could have restarted, but because he froze in fear, he didn't get it to restart in time, and then he ejected. The whole fear scenario there made no sense at all. Overall, Parallax wasn't even necessary in the film, just like Hector Hammond, for Hal Jordan's growth. In a lot of ways, they could have taken Parallax out, deviated from the original story for Hector Hammond could have been the big bad. Hector Hammond could have gained his powers from a meteor, just like the original comic book stated, and become a villain, while Hal Jordan was off-world learning from Kilowog and Sinestro. Then Hal Jordan could have returned to Earth and had his fight with the big bad.
Could have been very much different.
Yeah, very different. Maybe even had much better ratings.
Yeah, the critical reviews of this movie would have been a lot higher if they would have actually done Hector Hammond more justice. And because of the amount of screen time Hector Hammond did have in this movie,
it detracted from Parallax.
Absolutely. Hector Hammond in the movie was a big failure wise. Yeah, definitely, because of his origin story. Between his father, between how he got his abilities, and between the relationship between him and, Green Lantern, as well as Carol Ferris.
And not to forget his career choice.
Yeah, that too.
From petty criminal to college professor.
I gotta give him credit though. The man went to school, he graduated, got honors, and then he went to college thanks to his senator dad. Yeah. Like, that is insane. Never met it in my life, but you know what, guys? He might go somewhere in the world, minus the Yellow Lantern infectious telekinesis thing. So, with that all being said, Hector Hammond is a really phenomenal character in the movie, had we known who the hell he was.
Because he certainly wasn't the Hector Hammond I was familiar with.
Now, as far as casting choice goes, even though Peter Skarsgård was a phenomenal actor in doing what he did for Hector Hammond, given the options that he did.
Yeah, and that's the thing, he did do the best he could with what he was given.
Absolutely, but Peter Skarsgård is a very elder generation actor compared to Ryan Reynolds, as well as Blake Lively. Blake Lively at the time was, I believe, 23 years old when she did the role of Carol Ferris. Ryan Reynolds was low in his 30s, and then you had Peter Skarsgård, he was almost in his 40s.
See, now the thing with Ryan Reynolds is he's enough of a baby face that the age gap isn't noticed. They actually look like they're about the proper age.
Ryan Reynolds could pass for a younger.
They look like they could have gone to school.
But Peter Skarsgård was a very
balding.
Yeah, you hit it in a different perspective, and then you go something is totally wrong. So his origin story was a huge gap. His age was a huge gap. There was just so many problems with Hector Hammond as a whole in that movie, and I believe that's what killed the movie.
Honestly, realistically, he definitely was a big killer.
Parallax wasn't in the movie as much as you would think, but between the beginning and then the end, that's Parallax. But within that midsection, you had Hector Hammond being the antagonist.
And that's the issue, right? They split up the energies. If they had just gone with either Hector Hammond or Parallax, the movie could have taken totally different turns.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So for you guys out there, you guys understand that Hector Hammond really had no actual purpose in this film, with the correlation of, Parallax and Sinestro already being invited. So with that being said, you guys got to do better scripting. Green Lantern could have been a phenomenal movie had that
really could have. He's such a great character. And the other issue, there are so many other villains. You could have gone with a dynamic where Sinestro was having doubts about Green Lantern power and became Sinestro mid-movie. And then after he had already trained Hal Jordan. There are just so many routes they could have gone. Atrocitus,
and that would have been a better variation if Sinestro would have just trained Hal Jordan from the get-go, and then just, decided to oppose and gone to the yellow. And then it could have had Atrocitus be the end for a part 2, Atrocitus being...
Or even vice versa, where Atrocitus was the villain, and Sinestro and Hal Jordan are fighting him, and at the end of the movie, Sinestro wanted the yellow power because he felt like the green wasn't working against the red.
Because he lost at the very beginning.
There are so many other routes, so many others in Fear, which makes no sense in any context of the film up to that time or at any later time.
His defeat in the Green Lantern movie definitely ruined the movie because, well, for starters, he fights Green Lantern on multiple occasions.
At one point, Hal Jordan becomes Parallax.
Yeah, and then he kills his best friend. Yeah, and his best friend happens to be in the movie. So
that was an underrated cast.
Very underrated.
That guy did a great job.
So, with all that being said, as far as the script acting, let's go into the CGI spectrum of it. Now, as I watched Green Lantern recently, I've come to the realization that the suit itself was great. It wasn't bad for a 2011 film.
It was CGI.
It was CGI. We're doing good. It was the face mask for me.
For him, not for me.
The face mask, if they would have just did a traditional face mask, that would have been just fine. But if you notice, if you ever watch Green Lantern again, the face mask has these indents. It's embedded in his face, and it sucks his face in. Now, it's supposed to make him look different. It really doesn't. It just makes his bones look a lot more bonier, I guess. You can still see his cheekbones, so I don't know the comment that Blake Lively put in the movie, doesn't make sense. But I can still see his cheekbones. Now I see more of his other bones because it seems like his eye sockets are more sucked in, as if he just a decrepit human being. Kind of like Tales from the Crypt, in a sense.
And if they had wanted to go with the Green Lantern movie, I really think it should have been a sequel, because Parallax's whole thing was, what was it? It was a Cyborg Superman, right?
Yeah.
Cyborg Superman and somebody else destroyed Hal Jordan's original city after Parallax had used telepathy to reach out and poison his mind.
And that is a huge problem. So, like, when you guys want to attack the Green Lantern movie, attack it for the core for what it was, which is the script, rather than the actors or actresses portraying as certain characters, because they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Now, as for a whole, the movie could have been good.
It could have been good. It certainly could have been better.
It could have been good. Because everything we've attacked so far has really correlated into the script portion of the movie. So, like, if you want to watch it, it's a great film.
I enjoy it. It's watchable.
It's watchable, guys. It is watchable. And we can literally rate this film a good, I would say maybe 5, 6 out of 10 at
5,
best.
6 out of 10?
Yeah,
I'd say 5.5.
Like 5.5, 5.5 out of 10. It is at best for the Green Lantern. It's watchable. It's doable. It's not something you would want to waste your money on. But if you want to go back and have a little nostalgia,
free downloads today, baby.
Hop on Amazon Prime. I'm sure it's on there, and then enjoy yourselves.
And let me just reiterate, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and I don't remember the name of the actor that played Thomas, but the core friendship in that movie did a great job. And overall, actually, I will say that I think every actor in it did a good job for what they were given.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that all the issues with the script were an issue, not necessarily of casting, but character casting, as in Parallax, Hector Hammond, and over Atrocitus, Sinestro, etc. And script writing. They just didn't do a very good job of writing the movie. It had nothing to do with the actors or their portrayal of characters. I think all the actors in the movie did a good job of portraying the characters as they were given them. And I just wanted to leave with that. I think overall, you're right. People are correct. It's not a great movie. I just want the correct people responsible for it flopping to be gone after, as opposed to people giving Ryan Reynolds shit for an animated suit. It wasn't that bad. Huh?
Man.
In any case, I am Jorman.
I'm Shin.
And this has been
the Naked Truth Cinemas.
Not as good as the intro.
Not as good as the intro, but we branched off just as good as we started.